Catch some air here. Alright guys, hello and welcome to my review of the Ducati Hypermotard 950. Let's check it out. Basically, if you're not familiar with the Hypermotard, what Ducati has done is taken a Supermoto and a sport bike and put them together in a fun hooligan package. This thing is a blast to ride. It is not one of those things that's going to light your hair on fire with top speeds or anything like that, but as you can see, there's plenty of fun to be had here. I actually did have a Hyperstrada, which is like the touring version of this, a couple years ago, and I ended up breaking that one in half. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time. Let's start her up. Of course, brand new TFT display on this, hydraulic clutch as well on the 950, which is a nice step up from the 939. Let's get her rolling here. Still a 937cc Tesla Strada 11 degree L twin, belting around 115 horsepower, which doesn't sound like all that crazy too much, but it's the way that's delivered. This thing is a lot of fun, guys. Ducati has tuned it to be a little bit more smooth. Get a little stoppy action there. Alright. We have talked about a couple of things that Ducati has updated. Hydraulic clutch, TFT dash, retuning of the engine, smooth it out a little bit, get a little bit more low-end power as well, which you can definitely feel. Ergonomically, they have sculpted the seat a little differently, making this kind of portion right in between your legs kind of sculpted out, narrow, so you can get your feet down to the ground easier. So the Hyper, you know, it's not a short bike by any means, but they did make it a little bit more accessible as opposed to the previous generation just trying to get your feet to the ground. And they have a little bit more of a more linear path to the ground, effectively making the seat height feel a little lower. While we're on topic of the seat on this thing is actually rather comfortable. The seating position is very Supermotard-ish, very on top of the bike. You don't feel like you're sitting in it, you feel like you're sitting on top of it. You have that kind of aggressive, almost kind of motocross style stance where you're kind of very far forward feeling on the bike anyway. Got a lot of weight and control over that front tire. Of course, looks wise, totally different, totally updated. You could say actually totally harkening back to the old school 797 and Hyper 1100 with that, the way it looks almost exactly like those bikes. Going back to the Undertale Exhaust, the dual Undertale Exhaust, which actually functions on the older models. One of them was just a dead can, and the other one was the only one doing any sort of exhausting. Going back to the trellis subframe, which I think is absolutely gorgeous, as opposed to that aluminum subframe they had on the 939. We're on the standard 950 today, not the SP, so we're missing out on some Öhlins action and some other bits and bobs. Both bikes have a 6-way IMU with cornering, ABS, traction control, wheelie control, and the like. The wheelie control on this thing works great when it's turned off, because that's how wheelie controls should operate. I'm kidding. Of course, I got this thing in sport mode now with the DTC on level 1, ABS on level 1, and wheelie control off, basically the most aggressive settings. ABS might have been a little bit too aggressive on the higher levels, but you turned it down to level 1 or so, and it is very sharp. Doesn't really cut in at all unless it really has to, which is nice. Even experienced tracks riders, super sport riders, whatever, you can just enjoy this bike. It is just a sweet handling. Again, like I said, nothing to light your hair on fire in terms of top speed or big horsepower number or anything like that. So if you're coming from a super sport, it's kind of really not that at all. You really gotta come from the Supermoto side of things to kind of appreciate the philosophy here, having that kind of Supermoto stance and agility and all that, just in a little bit more powerful, more capable package. That's the way I like to think about this bike, as opposed to super sport down. I think of Supermoto up, and again, Hypermotard, so really pushing that theme here. Of course, LED daytime running light like we've seen on a lot of Ducatis recently. Bike looks good, man, with the exception of one little part, which I call the horseshoe on the back end there, right above those beautiful Undertale exhaust cans. You got that horseshoe looking thing, and wow, I don't know what the designers were thinking there. It just looks like it was blobbed on, but hey, it definitely sounds different than the bike I had. I had a 2013 Hyperstrada, as I mentioned before. Definitely sounds and feels really different in a good way, I would say. Even though this has the 6-way IMU and, you know, more of the nannies going on, the cornering, ABS and traction control and such, this bike almost feels more raw and direct in a way, which is really kind of counterintuitive, but it does. It almost has a more of a racy sort of feel to it. One thing I will say is this bike could really use a quick shifter, which you do get on the SP model. Or maybe it's just me that needs a quick shifter. I don't know. Getting spoiled by it lately. I would say if you're a kind of guy that's coming off of Supermotos and stuff and really likes that kind of flickability, agility, and that kind of type of riding that comes with Supermotos, but just maybe want a little bit more power, a little bit more top speed, a little bit more street ability, this would be an excellent way to go. Akin to the Duke 690, 790 type thing, although I'd say that's really more of a middleweight naked, and this is kind of really in a weird spot. Mirrors, they kept the stocky mirrors from the previous gen. A lot of you guys will probably remember how they had the mirror and the handguard on the older versions, but they still kept this stocky mirror. Really, you know, they work, I guess, but definitely not my preference. Brakes on this thing are just beautiful. Let me catch a little air here. See, that's the kind of stuff you could do with this thing. Just kind of zip around, catch a little bit of air, flick it back and forth. That's where you have the fun with this bike. Getting into the twisty stuff here, pop it over there, pop it over here. What a blast. I think really the idea, the cornerstone of this machine is that fun, agile riding. You know, you could even take this to a track, maybe a shorter circuit that's not so focused on high speed. It's a little tighter and just absolutely shred it. I really think this would be a really good urban commuter as well, just for that kind of flickability and agility, getting in and out of you know, switching lanes, getting in and out of traffic very easily. You almost want to stick your leg out when you're turning in, because it just feels like a dirt bike. It feels like a giant dirt bike with street tires. We got a nice S-bend up ahead, or chicane in other words. We'll see how she does. Drop Drop it down a couple gears, lean it over. And pull her out. Transmission's nice and positive feeling, nice click. All right, let's jump on a little bit of a back road here. Definitely hear that TC stepping in right there. I was thinking on whether to take this home over the weekend or the Panigale V4S, and I gotta say, I don't necessarily regret not taking the V4S home for the weekend. What a beautiful weekend, but this thing is just, for something to ride all weekend on, it's been an absolute blast. And I know I keep saying that, but I just can't think of any better way to put it. Which actually brings up a good point. We've been hammering the back roads pretty hard. I think we should get her up on the highway, see how she cruises. Honestly, it's not that bad in terms of wind. And with the riding position being as upright as it is, I thought you would get blasted a lot more with wind, and it would be very uncomfortable, and you'd get a lot of buffeting. To be honest with you, this is a lot smoother at highway speeds in terms of wind than my FZ10, which is actually quite remarkable. If you ask me, not teabag if I must say so myself. Let's get some roundabout action. Roundabout, roundabout, let me tell you about that roundabout. Almost got killed with a person in a Charger not paying attention. Sunday afternoon, people. Where the fuck you going? Oh, let's see if this person, see that person in that shitty car was actually paying attention enough and didn't kill me. Woo! Man, this thing was built for this. On this, you feel like you can turn inside the radius of the bike, which is awesome. So quick. Of course, I get stuck behind the slowest motherfuckers in the world consistently. It's almost damaging to your health. But right off the bottom of the rev range, when you're in gear trying to really pull it out of a corner or a tight turn that, like, say you just downshifted in and lost a lot of speed, and you're really kind of at the bottom of the rev range and you're just maybe in a gear too high or so, it really seems to fall on its face a little bit. And I know it's because they really wanted to smooth out that power delivery on the bottom, so they really cut it back down low so it's a lot less choppy. But it's really noticeable, and you almost have to train yourself around it, or at least know of it, because it can almost throw you off balance, thinking you got a little bit of punch there when you don't, and you're really, leaned over in a tight corner. Let's catch some air here. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo! What a freaking mad bike. Guys, don't buy this thing or you will end up in jail at some point. I'm going to call this thing the Joker. Because as soon as you get on this thing, you're public enemy number one and you're a freaking psychotic clown. And that's my review right there. That last sentence, I think, pretty much sums it up. That